And let's get Franciska de Vries to join us for a little chat remotely.
Can I ask a question immediately from Franciska?
Yes, please. Well, you know that you have something burning on your mind.
Yes. So just as once more, regarding the continuous plant cover and biodiversity, which we promote in the regenerative agriculture and carbon action, in your opinion, what is the significance of photosynthesis and root microbiome in this?
Yeah, well, I think that's extremely important. And as you say, promoting continuous plant cover and also biodiversity, that just make sure that you continuously have that process of photosynthesis occurring and that it's occurring efficiently, because that process of photosynthesis, locking up carbon first in the plant and then transporting it into the soil, either as root exudates pretty much immediately or as root or leaf litter at a later point, that just makes sure that that flow of carbon is continuously happening. And also actually what recent research, not by me, but by a group from Vienna, from Andreas Richter, that they also show that actually when you have higher plant diversity, you have higher root diversity, and that the microbial community actually works more efficiently to sort of capture that carbon.
Thank you.
Excellent question. Now we have a couple of questions from the chat, and we actually are ahead of schedule, which is amazing, so we will have time for them. We have a question also to Franciska de Vries. Kyle Mason-Jones would like to hear more about how the soil exudates were collected and quantified.
Yeah, it's a question I get a lot, actually. Well, what we do is we actually grow the plants in soil. We grow the roots in soil, because if you don't grow the roots in soil, then their structure and exudation has no relevance to what's actually happening in the real world. So we grow them in soil and then we wash them very carefully. And actually, as we speak, my group in Amsterdam is doing this, carefully washing roots for exudate collection. And then we let these roots recover, because as you wash them, you damage them. And what you don't want is to just collect the damaged sort of root inside. So we let them recover in a special hydroponic solution before we collect the root exudates. And this is actually something that we've written a paper on this method that's hopefully going to be accepted soon.
Sounds very interesting. Then we have a question from Tuura Roberi, and I think maybe Saara Kankaanrinta might take this at first. She's asking, so is there a conflict of interest between production of highly nutritious grass fodder and carbon storage in less nutritious lays? And what would be the solution? Could it be less cattle production, for instance? Saara, let's hear your views first.
Can I have the question once more? Hang on. So is there a conflict of interest in...
between production of highly nutritious grass fodder and carbon storage in less nutritious lays? And what might be the solution to this? Could it be less cattle production or something else?
From what I understood, they're not in conflict of... There's no conflict of interest. On the opposite, there's the better carbon storage should bring more nutritious crops. And maybe, yes, it means less cattle, but it means also different kind of cattle and cattle management compared to the paradigm that we're using at the moment. We're also testing this in Kvedia, in our farm. What do you say, Franciska?
Yeah, I think it's a very interesting question, but I think it's definitely something that we need to take into account, because, yeah, I've heard, for example, certain drought-resistant forage species that are not that appealing to the cattle, for example. So we definitely need to think about those choices, that actually obviously the cattle needs to still eat it. Thank
you for great thoughts on a very quick fire question as well. And then Heikki Setälä is asking Professor De Vries,
Hi, Heikki.
obviously, crop rotation could be a way to increase functional diversity of crop plant to enhance, for example, carbon and nitrogen retention when ploughing is needed. What do you think about crop rotation?
In cropping systems, I think that's absolutely fundamental. So more diverse crop rotations can also stimulate the incorporation and buildup of soil organic matter. And there's actually also some work that came out recently. I can't remember by who, to be honest, but I actually include this in my lectures when I'm teaching about this, that more diverse crop rotations are also positive for soil organic carbon stabilization. So it's absolutely fundamental. The question is obviously what the position of grasslands is in those rotations, because in the Netherlands we're trying to have at least a very high proportion of actual permanent grasslands, and keeping those and having those age and accrue more species is also beneficial for soil organic matter.
Thank you. Then we have a further question, which is, I'm thinking, directed at Professor De Vries as well. Salvatore Ceccarelli from the ICARA is asking, are there any studies about quality of roots activity in fields cultivated with evolutionary mixes of grains, for example, including different populations of grains in the same field?
I don't think so, but it's a very interesting question, and
quite
and
specific.
Something that, well, I think it's a really interesting question, because obviously root systems and root exudates, they can also respond to their neighbors. So having different crops or mixtures or genotypes might also be able to have benefits.
Excellent question. And actually, not last, second to last question comes from Pakistan, I think, or this is from Raza Ullah Khan. And the question is, in agriculture land, we usually focus on above ground nutrients management as the focus is yield. How can this approach be balanced to keep into account the below ground system? Saara, do you have thoughts on this?
Well, I think the management is correct term, and we need to put focus on profitability of the farmer, because of course, if you take account to the nutrients that are in the soil and how the microbes actually get the nutrients and what is the nutrient content of the crops, and also how much input do you need to have in your fields, that is all question about profitability to the farmer. So I would go from that door when changing paradigm.
Professor De Vries, would you like to add anything to this?
I completely agree, and I actually think there is, I mean, it might be slow, but there is really a shift taking place towards more interest in the processes below ground, and definitely also from the farmers. So I think, I think we also need to look more at the root systems.
And I'd say we have time for one more question before we go for a little break. Eva Houtbecker is stating that raising awareness on soils at risk is very important. And in addition to raising awareness, how do we actually address the root causes that are causing soil degradation? And she's saying that while this is a very broad question, she's concerned that changing business as usual does not go beyond a good business case. So how should we change everyday connections that currently evolve around a human-centered worldview? I'd like Saara Kankaanrinta to start, and then maybe Professor De Vries to go on.
Oh well, this is an easy one.
Obviously.
Well, this is the core question that we actually work with. And of course, it's a question of all the people, not just farmers. But with farmers, for example, we really start it from the root questions. And there, the agricultural extension and the education is really, really important. And to understand that you're actually working with nature, not against the nature. But this is something we should have thoroughly in whole society, and we also do that, but it's a hard question. We need help from everyone. We really need to understand our role on this planet, and that is cooperation, not fighting against the nature.
Franciska de Vries, what would you like to add?
Yeah, I completely agree, and I think it starts at the base, and I think education has a very important role here to just create that awareness of the importance and also the beauty of soil. And something I'd actually also like to highlight here is that really the past 10 years have seen a massive transformation and a massive increase in the interest for soils. And for example, when I was doing my PhD in the early in 2003 to 2009, people were just like, why would you look at soil organisms? Like, that's just weird. And like, well, here we are now. Like, there's never been more interest for this. So I think people are realizing the importance of soil more and more. Obviously, there's more to be done, but there's already been a massive change.
Very encouraging. Thank you for those last words. Thank you, Professor Franciska de Vries. Thank you so much, Saara Kankaanrinta.